Good evening, it's Friday night, just gone 7 o'clock, and as always, you're tuned to the Friday Night Football Pitch with myself, Cameron McDonald, co-host Dennis Newell, and our regular special guest, Andy Millen, assistant manager at Morton. Tonight we'll be looking back at Rangers and Celtic in Europe. Good week for our European clubs. Goodness much, keep this going much longer. They'll be out by Easter maybe, rather than out by Christmas, you know what I mean? So both Rangers and Celtic having good weeks, I think is fair to be said, in terms of obviously where they ended up in qualification. We'll also be taking a look back at last week's football results and obviously our traditional look ahead to what's coming this weekend and this week. And we'll also be taking a look at the world of football management, or more importantly, the world of former football management, as a guy that I think Dennis, myself and Andy all know in one shape or form. Stuart Kettlewall tells the media he was forced out at Motherwell at Fir Park by basically abuse from the fans. We'll discuss that in more detail later on. I think that's going to be quite an important part of tonight's show. But we will start, Dennis, Andy, with last night at Ibrox. Rangers 2, some Belgian mob 1, San Gallen or whatever they were called. Good result for Rangers. I think they scored the second goal against the run of play a wee bit. That kind of firmed them up a wee bit. And then obviously hanging on at the end once the Belgians get a goal back. But a 2-1 victory sees Rangers directly through to the last 8, Dennis. Or the last 16, sorry, the round of 16.
16, yeah. Absolutely brilliant. Performance, okay. Result, magnificent. And again, I look at it and I'll tell you what, you couldn't have handpicked the opposition Rangers have had up to this point. When you look at the two English clubs, they have struggled big time, Tottenham and Man United, and the rest of the teams that Rangers have played against have been poor to mediocre, to say the least. And people may go, "Oh, you're having a laugh." No, I'm serious, because if you look at that Rangers team, it's so depleted, and I mentioned this last week. Clement goes and gets a hat and just throws the name in it and pulls them out the hat. And these guys are doing it on the back of wanting to be in the team and playing and busting a gut. And I'll tell you what, since the day that he was unable to pick his best 11, the energy, the appetite, and everything that goes with it has lifted itself by about an extra 40% from the day that he was picking his best 11. And it's amazing how much work that these guys are going through. And I'll tell you what, whether they're doing it for the manager or not, they're certainly doing it for Rangers Football Club. They've been outstanding. And I'll tell you what, I mentioned this last week as well. Celtic should actually be looking over their shoulder. I don't mean about the league, but at this moment in time, I think Rangers have to play them, as I said last week. Tomorrow, I think Celtic will get another shock, because I think they've improved that much. And I don't know why it's taking them so long to be playing the two forwards. As I've said before, wouldn't they make one good Ali McCoist? Playing the two of them together has worked out really well for him. But again, he's maybe forced down that road because he's got nobody else. The goals have been scoring has been brilliant, but they still miss chances. Desser, with a bit of savvy, a wee bit more composure, could have hit them 4-0 up at half-time. After the goal was scored, he missed 3 good chances in the first half. Eventually, he does well enough that the team go through, but, you know, and then you look at Egerman, he thinks he's arrived in a world platform, this boy, because he's done well the last few games. I mean, he's getting to the stage where everything that he comes up against the opposition, he might nutmeg them. And it got so bad last night, he got cocky beyond belief. Now, I'm a believer that he didn't have the confidence a while back, and he's been confident, and he's tipped himself over the scales. That there was some slack passing from him last night. And even Ali McCoist, who was commentating in the match, was shaking his head and making comments about how simple it was to make, just be positive about the pass. And I know I'm maybe slating them, but I'm going to go into the good aspects. Their finishing has been incredible. It really was. Even if you look back last weekend with Desser's goal, stunning. So there is that gap, and it's improving. They have really, really improved, and I'm delighted because the Rangers supporters do deserve an awful lot more than what they've been getting in the last 6 months even. So it's upwards for them, and they deserve to be in that 8th spot. I don't know if you've seen the game, Andy. Did you watch it?
Yes, I saw some of it, Dennis. I think it's like a fantastic result, first and foremost, for Rangers, and then more importantly for Scottish football, because the two so-called big clubs in Scotland are certainly leading the way in terms of Celtic and Rangers. And last night, there were times in the game where the opposition gave them a few frights. But to be fair, at the end of the day, they've got the job done. And as you rightly say, Cammy, they've qualified in 8th place, which means they've not got a playoff place. They're waiting in whoever they're going to play, which is brilliant. I think it's brilliant for him. And Clement said that he has had a tough time at sometimes. And as you said there about the players that have come in, I would imagine that the players that have come in have had a wee bit between their teeth to say, I'll show you I can play for your team. And they've done that. Whether or not they're playing for the manager or they're just showing that they are worth an opportunity to play instead of being in the side and not seeing any light, as I call it, as a player. If you don't see any light as a substitute or somebody in your squad, you eventually die away, Dennis. If the team, the starting 10 outfield players aren't doing it, then the other players who are either on the bench or in your squad, they deserve an opportunity somewhere along the line, Dennis. And these boys have come in and certainly grabbed that, I think, at Glasgow Rangers. But as I say, for the Rangers fans, the Rangers club, I think it's brilliant. And it also brings, financially, it brings them, obviously, no anywhere near what Celtic's going to gain at the moment, but still good financial money coming out of Ibrox.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, the boys that he's brought in, and he's been forced down that road. There's no question of doubt about it. But if you're in that squad and you're training during the week now, you've got to be saying the amount of injuries they keep getting, you're going to get a chance. And, there's been boys come in, without going through them all, they've done a great job. I mean, I still think that, Suter coming back adds a good bit of strength. I think he's probably their most consistent and best player they have in the team. But there's a few out there just now, that are basically not so much proving me wrong, but they are getting a bit more fine-tuned than they were. Egerman and Dessers, who, to me, I don't know if anywhere near a finished article, have improved dramatically. And I'll tell you what, it's been a treat to watch them finishing when they are doing it, but it's also embarrassing to watch how basic stuff seems to go a begging with them. And I don't know what the cause of that is. Maybe they're just not the refined player that we expect, maybe playing with the old firm. Maybe that's the reason. But if I had a quick look at the teams that didn't get into that 8th spot. You've got Anderlecht, Ajax, Real Sociedad, Galatasaray, Roma, Ferencváros, Porto, Twente, Sporting Braga, Hoffenheim, Tel Aviv, Slavia Prague, Malmo, Dynamo Kiev, and Qarabag. These are all sort of recognised European teams. And
some big names in that.
It doesn't matter how they drew against them or where it ended up. Brilliant, this league, and the way that it's been orchestrated. Absolutely magnificent. And if you'd said when you seen that league, never mind going into Champions League now, that Rangers would end up 8th, where I went, you're having a laugh. But magnificent. You can't sing the praises enough. And as much as I've given the manager stick, I've been pretty vacant about him. He's got to be given some plaudits as well, because he's kept his cool. He has big beliefs. Has made a statement that he can. What was that? He says he can beat anyone. And he is a bit delusional. But if if you remember in the Scottish World Cup team, it all comes to a fruition eventually when we had the Ali's Army, who was doing laps of honour in Hampden before we went to the World Cup. He might be related to Clement, I think, somewhere down the line. But we'll see how it pans out. And just now, yes, he deserves the plaudits because he's on a high. But I do believe he's always one game away from getting stick, and that's just how the league is at this moment in time. But certainly delighted for the Rangers supporters.
Indeed, it was a great result. As you say, perhaps the performance left a wee bit to be desired, but how many times have we had great performances and been the nearly men or get nothing from it? as Scottish football fans, Dennis. So it's nice where you're saying, yeah, we're maybe not playing as well as we could do, but we're still managing to get a result. And a top 8 finish is great. The contrast with what's happened, contrast that with what's happened over at the other side of the city, and Celtic, they're through to the playoff. Obviously, the last 16 playoff, whatever you want to call it, where they're going to be facing. Paul Shanks got it right last week. It's either going to be Real Madrid or Bayern Munich for Celtic, So pretty much you'd expect Celtic to be out and not qualify through that for the next round. However, there's always a chance. But at the end of the day, I'm quite sure Celtic supporters will be looking forward to going to Madrid, going to Munich, and obviously contrast that with Real or Bayern Munich coming to Celtic Park.
They've got Bayern Munich, Cammy.
Yeah, right, okay.
Bayern Munich they've got. So, the thing is, with it, we're obviously going to supporters and stuff later on, but they've got an issue there because there was a flare let off last night and Wednesday night, and they've already been given a warning. So there's every chance that the trip to Germany will not be allowing Celtic supporters to go there. The simple reason being, as I say, they're not taking a tell in these guys. I don't know why. The thing that disappoints me is they showed a snippet on the TV yesterday of the guy actually with the flare in his hand, and all the people around about him, their faces were blanked out. Well, name and shame them. Look, if you're a Celtic supporter and that guy's got a flare in his hand, I would really want to know who he is. Instead, he just sees risk getting slapped, thrown out the gate, and everybody else is suffering because of him. But round about that area, they all know that you're not allowed to do it. And he'll be there with people, and yet their faces are all blanked out. I mean, it just doesn't work out for me, that. I'm sorry, but, good, decent supporters are suffering by this handful of nut jobs that go to matches. And, Celtic have done well. We'll go into the game, obviously, but why do you need that? I mean, there was 19 arrests, I believe, in Birmingham. And then the week that Manchester Rangers were there, and we never talked about that, it was 29 arrests. And you say to yourself, out of the thousands that go, well, you're always going to expect a few nut jobs. It's like going down the motorway and you see them passing you, and you go, what planet are these people on?
Yeah.
And you're getting to go to football matches now, and it's getting bigger, which will come on to in the Motherwell thing later on. But, yep, great tie again. And we're looking into February here in the Champions League with Celtic progressing. I never thought for a minute they would actually beat Aston Villa. And when they went 2-0 up, Villa, early doors after 4 minutes, I feared the worst. I really did. Yeah. There were rabbits in the headlights. They were all over the place. And the two central defenders don't seem to lend themselves. And I've said this to you before, Cammy, a left-sided player playing on the right side never works for me. Don't know if you agree with that, Andy. It's always something I've experienced. Because to being more left-sided, I thought, this could give us real problems. They didn't gel that great, but at the same time, they managed to weather the storm. And the 2 goals that they scored again were brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Consider Keogh goes away. I'm saying to myself, Celtic are really going to struggle now because they don't have a good centre forward. The boy stepped up to the mark and stuck the ball away great. I heard somebody on the radio the night before saying, he'll get a chance now, and he's really been needing that. And with Kyoga away, the result is he'll be a better player for it. And I'm going, you having a laugh? The boy proved me wrong. He took his 2 chances, absolutely brilliant. And for Celtic to fight back into the game, I think Aston Villa were deserved winners, but at the same time, they gave a good battle and a good account of themselves. I don't know if you've seen the penalty miss, Cammy. Did you see it, Andy?
Yeah.
Cracker, wasn't it?
It's the kind of thing I used to do.
That's still going to come down at some point. Hey, listen, you're just lucky to hit the ball, Dennis. Let's be fair.
That's true. I'm talking about back then, no, Cam. So, yeah, but brilliant. Again, Celtic a wee bit makeshift team. They just didn't seem to have their full quota. And, I don't think even with the full quota, Andy, they would maybe edge Aston Villa. I think just too strong.
But I think when you're not at full tilt, he's obviously Callum Vickers is a big player for him.
Yes.
And then you've got Maeda, who was suspended, and Kyogo's gone. That's 3 main players with the team. And the one thing that Maeda can give them, he gives them power and pace on the sides. Boy Kyogo or Kyogo's sharp on the outside. But I thought they'd done really well, because when it went to 2-0, Dennis, I actually thought it could be a sore one for them. And give them credit, they came back into the game and get a foothold in the game. But I just thought overall, Aston Villa did deserve the game, to win the game, but I also thought they were just more powerful. Dennis, see them in terms of at pace, they were at you, they're right away, and you could see that difference. There was a difference between the two teams, and that's not a criticism of Celtic. Just the Aston Villa, if Celtic or Rangers were doing in the Premiership, you would give them 4 or 5 years, and they would be one of the top 5 or 6 teams in the Premier League with the finance that they would be able to bring to their support and the club and all that. But you could see that gulf, and I think the next tie that they've got, Dennis, you said Bayern Munich is up. I mean, wasn't that long ago they were champions of Europe, and it could have been Real Madrid. So they are at the top dining table playing football, and there's got to be a realism. I'm sure they'll give a right good account of themselves at home, but it's the way when they go into the Munich, that Allianz Arena. I'm interested to see how they cope over there, because again, Bayern Munich are a big, strong side as well, physical, but good football side as well. But they've done brilliant. Celtic again. Sorry, Dennis, going back to the financial. I think they brought in, is it something like £40 million? Is it more than that?
Yeah.
So Celtic coffers are just kept coming in, and you've got to give credit to Brendan Rodgers for their team qualifying through to that knockout stage.
My only concern is, Andy, that they're not throwing money at this to build for next year. I was really disappointed that he's done virtually nothing in the transfer window.
I think at that level, Dennis, at Celtic's level, they're maybe looking and going, we should have enough to win the league in Scotland.
Yeah.
But we're going to buy maybe a player or players for one game. I'm not saying that they're going to get beat.
No, that's right.
But they could. So they're maybe going to try and keep their money for the summer, which you normally find the clubs will do better business. That's the only thing I think Dennis. Because I don't see them going and spending 15, 20 million. They'll not do that. They'll not do that, Dennis.
No, it's certainly logic with the fact that, let's make assumption, as most people I'd imagine would do, that Bayern Munich will just be a bit too much for them. So what you're saying is right. They're going to buy a player, maybe knee-jerk reaction because Kyogo's away and they're a bit weak maybe up front, or they're maybe needing to strengthen somewhere else. And they put this money into it now, and it's maybe really what I wanted to do. The only thing I've got is sometimes that we know the way business goes at Parkhead, they would rather sell than spend. And that's where you look at that squad now, and you look at the wee boy Yang out there as a prime example. He would maybe struggle a wee bit even to get in the Rangers team just now. Whereas when we looked at the start of the season, none of the Rangers players would probably get in the Celtic lineup. Now I would question that in some of the places that are there. So,
the one thing he's probably looking for, I think we'll be looking for another striker to come in, and possibly a left back area, because it's only Greg it's at Celtic
for the season. Yeah,
the boys went away back to Barcelona, who's going back out to Como. So they were obviously maybe hoping that Tierney would come back, but I think they'll need another left back just for whether it cover or to challenge Greg for the left back position. But they should have enough, Dennis, to get over the line in Scottish football, and then come the start of the new season or during the summer, that's when they'll be doing their big business, I would think.
Yeah, but you know something? I'm not a fan of Scales by any manner of means.
Oh, dear goodness, he's bloody murder.
But you know something? See if the boy Taylor gets injured, I would place him there.
Yeah,
because you've got a central defender that can cover for him if you're playing with Trusty and your other side of the parts more than taking care of. Carter Vickers and Johnson are taking care of themselves. So for me, when you're looking at what's left in the Scottish Premiership, I'm not a fan of him playing centre half. I think he's miles off the pace when it comes to being a finished article for Celtic. And it's a contradiction, because if I stuck him out in the channel at left back, I might get a wee bit more out of him because he's not got as much to do, so to speak. But that we'll never see that because I think it's highly unlikely. But as Andy's talking about cover, then that would be my solution if you're a wee bit short at this moment in time.
I think if that comes in. Sorry,
Sorry, Andy, go on.
If it comes into emergency, they will put him out there. But because of the way they want to play, because they bring their full backs invertedly in that middle of the park.
Yeah.
Taylor's really good at handling the ball. Johnson, I don't think he's good handling the ball, but he's a better athlete than Greg in terms of power and pace. But I think he would put Scales out in that area if they don't get anybody else in. Scales did okay, but their best partnership seems to be Vickers and Trusty.
Okay. Well, he brought Trusty in for that reason because obviously you could see long term that Scales maybe wasn't going to be the answer. And to be honest, I think he's done a lot better than he done last year, Scales. But I wouldn't put a mortgage on him if I was relying on a 1-on-1 or whatever, and even challenging. It's pretty poor. But he's got away with it, so to speak. And I
think he get found out 2 or 3 times last night. I thought he was at times he was chasing the ball far too far up the park, leaving too many gaps in behind. Again, obviously, admittedly, I've only seen highlights, so I haven't seen the whole game. But certainly, what I saw didn't do him any favours at all.
Again, Cammy, when you're watching the game there, and Brendan Rodgers, I've no doubt that's how he wants to play. Brendan Rodgers right in the front foot, but the defenders are basically left 1v1, and the difference is between Scottish football and the English Premier League is the power and the pace. The boy Watkins, and you even see the last goal. The boy Dan Murray, who's been out on loan at Queen's Park, is a very, very good young centre back. Really quick in Scottish football, really quick. Yeah, in the Championship, he was lightning quick, so you get away with things. Whereas the thing that he tried to do at Aston Villa, they were on him right away, and that's the difference. And even in that game, the boy Watkins was at the boy Trusty. He was at the boy Scales. He never gave them a minute's peace, and that's the difference. When you look at that power and the pace, it's just like somebody pressing a button and it just goes up again. Yeah.
I mean, only Watkins is different class, and I mean the boy that get a hat trick on Wednesday night, Rodgers. Yeah. Anytime I've been watching him at Villa, I've been very, very impressed with what I've seen. You know, I think he's good on the ball. He can spot an opening. You know, and he's finishing as he showed the other night ain't too bad either.
Cammy, I couldn't believe he's only 22.
Yeah, he's a young lad.
I couldn't believe that when you Googled him or Wikipedia'd him, 22, and I thought, but that's what like it is down there. It's like they put them in grow bags down there, that big.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing. They're a decent young side, you know. I know they've maybe struggled a wee bit this season, Aston Villa, in the Premiership, you know, but they're a really, really good side. Let's be honest, Watkins ain't old, you know, and as you say, Andy, French boy in charge is very, very decent manager as well, you know. So I mean, he's won the UEFA, well, the old UEFA Cup. You know how many times he won that, you know. So
I think he won it 3 times with Seville. I think it was
Seville, yeah,
brilliant, and again,
you know. So
Arsenal never gave him the time that they've gave the manager at the moment, Arteta. Arteta's won one thing, I think, in 5 years. Emery was put out the door after a couple of years, and he's done really, really well at Aston Villa. Really well.
Yeah, I think he's done exceptionally well. Yeah. When you look at the big guns that are around about him, I mean, he's really embarrassed Manchester City when you look at the way they've been playing all season. So they've sustained that, what would you say, pressure on the teams at the top, Aston Villa. I mean, even watching them against West Ham the other week there, I just felt that they're consistent. Their shape's great. They attack well. They've got good finishing. Just overall, the only person I'm not a fan of, and you've heard me rattle my gums many a time about this, is Mings. I mean, he's been out injured again, and he was out injured there for about 15, 18 months. And maybe there's something...
No coincidence, Villa did well when he wasn't in the team.
So, you know, I'm beginning to wonder if that's a common denominator for the team progress and playing well. It's without him there, you know. Just my thoughts on it, but I don't think he adds a lot of value to Aston Villa, and I think they'll probably get by better without him. But we'll see, because there's a long way to go in that. There's a long way to go in that, you know. But just looking at it, absolutely brilliant for the Old Firm. I can't remember when we last sat here, or anyone sat down and thought about when we were getting into February, and the Old Firm were both in Europe.
Yeah.
And when that would be.
Yeah, I mean, the format of both competition is great for that, but by the same token, you can only do well in a competition you're in, you know. So to say, we've got a couple of extra games and whatever else, you know, it's still a credit to both clubs, that irrespective of how the circumstances are, that they're both going to be in Europe. They're both qualified essentially for the next round.
Yeah.
Yes, Celtic have got to go through a qualifying round, but they've qualified for the qualifying round, if you like, you know. So it's a fair play to them for that, you know.
The thing about this year's format, which is just new, obviously, when all the games were on in the one night, obviously, the Wednesday and Thursday, everybody's something to play for. The majority of teams have. And they were moving so much. It's actually quite interesting to see how it all works. You know what I mean? And the only disappointing thing probably for some of the clubs are you've obviously got a transfer window that closes at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And they're playing games, so you've got maybe people who are getting sold prior to that, or can they buy people in? There's no much leeway, Cammy. You know what I mean? It's quite a strange format, and for European football, for the teams that are in Europe, for buying and selling with the windows closing. You know what I mean? It's another thing that probably will get changed again to suit the European. That's what will happen.
Unless they're going to turn in and say you pretty much run with the same squad for the entire season, you know. So
Cammy,
there is that as well.
You could do that. I don't know about Dennis, but I wouldn't have a problem with saying your window starts in June and it ends at the end of August, and see the group that you bring in. That's what you've got to work with.
That's your play, yeah.
They'll not do that. I mean, and that means
I'm saying in terms of changing that.
Yeah. Sorry.
But I'm saying in terms of changing that winter window, you know, if you keep that to the end of January and the European competitions end at the end of January, then you're looking at saying, right, we'll be pretty much either we go for it big time and see if we can bring a player or two in, you know, to get us through the next round, or we're stuck with what we have, you know. So, no, I think the format's just a bit bang on. So, I've no doubt they'll tinker with it, make 2 or 3 adjustments. But by and large, it's a really, really good format. And I don't think I've heard anybody say anything negative about the new format. Certainly, we've raved about it on here, you know, and bigger guys than us, I'm quite sure, have been very, very positive about it as well.
I think when you say that and it opens up a can of worms, I just had a look there. There was 5 games, I think, played in the month of January. There was the concentration of the Old Firm. I know we had Hearts to a point, but the Old Firm trying to get in the Champions League and Europa League as best it possibly could. So you look at the month of January, that's congested with fixtures in the Premier League. You've got the Champions League and Europa League, and then they're trying to work in a transfer window. Now, I think you're spot on when you say that, Andy, it could be moved. For me, I would do it in December. Because when you start the season, there's normally a rush there anyway. And some people settle into clubs, some don't. And before Christmas anyway, some of them are ready to go out the door, or some people maybe want to move. So December, when it's a bit quieter, it might be worthwhile doing the transfer window then. And it leaves that January period where it's right down to the business end of it, trying to qualify for the 8th spot or 24 and below. You're focused a bit more, and you've not got that distraction of trying to get players into play for the remainder of the season. An awful lot they're juggling about.
Yeah. I say I'm quite sure they'll be thinking about with it over the next couple of seasons, because when they initially had the Champions League, they obviously changed it, moved it about, juggled and things like that, you know. So I'm quite sure that'll be the same with this format. But as I say, it's been a great format. It's been great for Scottish football, the format, you know. And as I say, the fact that some of the big boys are still not assured they're going through, you know, Manchester City had to play to the last game, you know. You got Real Madrid, you got Bayern Munich having to play, you know. So, no, I think it's great. So, yeah, fair play to that competition.
Well, again, just what I've done with the Europa League, if you look at the teams that are not up to that 24 spot, Dynamo's Zagreb, Stuttgart, Donetsk, Bologna, Red Star, Sparta Prague, Leipzig, Girona, Red Bull Salzburg. They've all missed the cup.
Yeah.
So can you look at that and you go, wow, that's magnificent for Celtic as Rangers when you see the quality of teams that they have sort of swept aside, but they've managed to avoid having any defeats like the other teams. Some of them, I mean, you look at that bottom lot, 31 to 36. So the top team there is 28th spot is only get 6 points. Then down to young boys with no points. And then you look at what was actually up there at the top, and you take the Celtics and the Aston Villas who made it. Celtic with 12 points. Anybody would have taken that at the start. Anybody.
To be fair, Celtic only had 2 defeats. They had 2 defeats away from home. Borussia Dortmund and Aston Villa.
Yeah.
Which has been good, because the one thing Celtic have had over the last 4 or 5 years, they've had a few downs at times. I mean, I think this year the formats helped Celtic, and obviously even with the experience they've had over the last few years playing in Europe, I think it showed that they are vastly improving against the bigger clubs.
And that's where a poorer squad in my eyes, because they're constantly selling players, and if they could keep them, Andy, there would be a force in Europe, but that's never going to happen.
No, but Celtic is we'll just say a selling club, even though Celtic's a big club. They are a selling club. Out with Scottish football. That's what players come in. They play in the Champions League. They're not getting sold because they're playing in Scotland. They get sold because the people who are looking at players, they're playing at the top level of football in the Champions League, in their national team, and that's why they get moved out for good money, for really good money.
Just on the Kyogo point, Andy, you're still involved in the game, and it's at a right top level. So I always felt that Kyogo could probably have offered an English Premiership team something rather than where he's ended up.
I think if you look at the English game, Dennis, again, I know there was talk early on that possibly Manchester City at the start of the season, he would score goals in Man City's team because of his movement. But I just think that physically, size, you would need to go to a team that dominates the ball, Dennis, for the way he plays the game. He's always on his shoulder. He's not somebody that's going to come and link the game. He's somebody that's always playing in between the goals, in between the 6-yard line, and he's a sniffer. But I don't think that. I'm just off the top of my head. I don't think if he was going and playing at a Brentford or a team at the lower end, Everton, I don't think he would score the type of goals he would score for Celtic, because Celtic dominated and his runs were very, very good. But if you go into England, I don't think that would hurt as many teams, Dennis. I mean, unless he was playing for one of the top teams that dominated the ball. But I think the reason why they've allowed Kyogo to go for Celtic, he's 30 now. Not that that's old, but even from his point of view, I don't think he would be one of your top earners, Dennis. I think he's seen an opportunity to go to France, whether you think it's good, bad or indifferent. He will make a few bob going to France. He's also maybe got an opportunity to get into the international setup, which he hasn't been able to do.
That's right,
because the manager thinks that what he's playing and what he's scoring, the quality isn't good enough. Yet he has Maeda in it and Hatate in it, but he doesn't have Kyogo in it. So with him moving to France, he obviously hopes that he's going to get a bit of international recognition. But I didn't realise the team that he's going to, Dennis, as much as they're well known, they're not doing well in the French league.
No, I know. That was why I brought it up.
And it surprises me, Dennis, because to shine, I think, personally, in what I've saw at Celtic, Celtic are always the front foot and they're always creating opportunities, and his runs are always creating opportunities for teams. But he's going to a team that obviously don't dominate the ball. He's obviously going to a team that isn't playing with a lot of confidence, that are the lower end of the league. So I don't know how that's going to work out over there.
Well, if you look at Postecoglou, brought him over, and he's not changed his style of play. You'd have thought it would have been pocket money for the Premier League to be paying money for him. If it doesn't work out, you've had a hit at it. It's not cost you a lot of money. You're not ending up with a custard pie. But you've got a boy there that's got a lot of life in him. He terrorises central defenders, and that allows openings, as you know, Andy, for other players to come in.
But what happens nowadays, Dennis, and it happens a lot in football now, where if you're 30, 29, 30, 32, 33, you're deemed as, how would I say this? You're not deemed as fashionable. So people say, why are you spending money on that? Whereas if you go back years ago, Dennis, teams would have went and bought the players of good experience between the 28 and 32, 33, 34, and it would complement what you've got in the team. Now, the people who are above the manager, they'll go, no, we're not going to buy that. How no? Because he's 30. He's 30, but he can play when he's in Kyogo will play, providing he's injury free, which everybody's got, could get an injury, no. But in terms of his fitness wise, he'll play about 36 comfortably. He might even play more than that. But again, the people who run the football clubs, that's what they look at. If it's no data, it's age. And
well, the age thing, Andy, is when you put money out at 30, you've got to look at it and think it's dead money. Because you'll never get your return for it.
But you'll not get your return for it. But the bottom line is what that guy can contribute to your club over that length of time. See, he signs a 3-year contract. You're going to get that. I know there's no value at the end yet, but these people who go and pay, I don't know, 5-6 million on somebody at 24, 25, if they don't move on somewhere else, that value's gone as well. Sure. And I understand how it all works, but when you buy somebody at a younger age, this is only me speaking personally, or bring a younger boy into your club, all you're doing is buying potential, because that potential might have been working at a lower end market, whereas that player moves to the higher end market. Some players move forward again, some players don't, some players go back away. So on regarding somebody who's 30, 32, and somebody's wanting to pay X amount of million, I understand it's dead money in terms of getting something back, but what that person is going to bring to your club in the terms he's in that 2, 3, 4 year could be massive. Massive.
How much of now clubs' transfer policy is dictated by the financial fair play rules? Because you look at now, clubs, for instance, Manchester United, Manchester City with Cody Palmer, they actually now can move on players who they've brought through their youth system and move them on, sell them, and every single penny that they get from that, they can write that through as a 100% profit, which actually helps them in terms of financial fair play. So the days of players coming through a club, being homegrown, coming through a club, spending their career at the club, are going to be very, very shortly things of the past, because clubs can essentially look at what Manchester United are trying to do with maybe Garnacho, or if they can get anything for Marcus Rashford. They're going to be able to say, well, we made 100% profit on that, so it's going to help us in terms of financial fair play.
Dennis, the first time I ever heard anything about that, I was at Kilmarnock at the time with the Italian manager, and he brought in 2 or 3 boys for Italy, and 2 of the boys were in Juventus. The Juventus at that time, the boys were really good in terms of how they spoke, and it's a business. And what they did was, Juventus would maybe have somewhat 70 players, 75 players registered, but they were never near the first team. And what they did was, I'm just saying they had a group of 25 players. The other 30 plus players, they all get sent out on loan everywhere. And what would happen is they would gain experience and then come back in. And if anybody liked them, they get sold. And to flip on to what I'm going to say, I was listening to a podcast with the big boy Tory Andrew Flo was talking. And he was working at Chelsea. And that's what he was saying. It's just a business now. So what they do is, they scour the market around the world for young players that say 15, 16, 17. They bring them into the system. And what they do is they bring them into the market and they play away. Some of them might never even get near Chelsea's first team. But they get sent out on loan and they come back in, and then somebody goes and pays millions for them. And when that money comes back in, Dennis, it's against the financial fair play. So it goes into that pot, which means technically speaking, they're not doing anything underhand. but technically speaking, you are doing it. You're not bringing them into your group, your first team group. You're growing them in so that it's worked out. The financial fair play means that they're not going and spending, just say, 20 million on a Brazilian player at 22. They bring the Brazilian player at 16, 17. They keep them in their system, which means after so many years, they're really registered as a homegrown player. Just what you're saying. So that means the money that comes into them, they'll not get penalised. And the reason why the boy Palmer gets sold on to Man City is to bring that financial fair play down. They've got money in the bank for that. Need to see that, Dennis. Just go straight in to the we'll just say the coffers to make sure UEFA compliance is fair play. But there's a load of players at all the top clubs. They all do the same. And if you look at Celtic bench and you look at Rangers bench, they have to keep so many homegrown players that are in the system on the bench for European games. So just say for talk's sake, the boy Dan Murray get pulled back from Queen's Park. Celtic allowed the boy Stephen Welsh to go to Belgium.
Yeah.
But then that's why Dan Murray gets brought back into Celtic Park. And he get brought on there because he's one of their homegrown players. So they let one out, but brought him back in because you've got to have, I don't know what it is, I don't know if it's 5 or 6 or 7 players that have come through your homegrown academy, whatever way it's done, at both Celtic and Rangers. They've all got to do it, Cammy. Whatever European club they've all
that's
got
it, exactly. It's a way of satisfying the FFP stuff.
But is it no maybe a good thing to a degree? And I'm looking at it and going, well, we complain about homegrown players, and the problem is we don't actually see them in our own turf. They're going maybe abroad, or we're not really seeing what homegrown talent is about.
What I'm going to say,
but you're still not going to see it.
No. What I'm going to say is, we're talking about homegrown, and we were all young at one time, and I keep hearing the same thing about we don't do this, we're not seeing this, we're not giving them enough chances. They've got to be good enough to play. They've got to be good enough to go and play. Now people say, but how will you know if they're not good enough to play? Well, these boys are training every day. With their teams. And if they're doing good enough, they'll get an opportunity. But the bottom line is, the years gone by with Celtic and Rangers, I'm just saying Celtic and Rangers, Hibs Hearts are the same, where they would be producing their own players. The bottom line is, they obviously feel that the quality isn't coming through. So that's why they're going elsewhere. And if you look at Celtic's team, the only one that's playing regular in Celtic's team that's come through their system, I think, you might quote me on this, Dennis, is Callum McGregor. That's it.
But Andy, when you were at Kilmarnock with Steve Clarke, and you're doing exceptionally well, you took the youth team and were responsible for that. And I remember speaking to you, and we were talking about the quality it was in the youth team. And even when the manager came and said to you at times, what about who could get in the first team squad? I don't think that you felt there was enough there that could cut their teeth in that first team. I mean, out a whole squad of youth players, I mean, how many did you reckon, when we had that conversation, would make the first team substitutes bench?
Dennis, the way Steve Clarke worked, and this is not just Steve Clarke, the way they all work, Brendan Rodgers will be the exact same. He'll be sympathetic to some young boys, and some of them will come up and train. But see, when he's got his group of 20 players, and they're all available and fit, the young ones will not get a look in. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Steve Clarke had a group of 20 players there, Dennis, and the only player in that group that's still playing and still being about was the boy Innes Cameron.
Right.
At that time with Steve Clarke's group, no young boys, and I don't mean that in a bad way, would have been able to sustain and be good enough to play in his team. And what I mean sustain, I saw his training from Sunday to Friday. As much as the young ones would have been in and get a wee bit of experience, they couldn't cope with that, Dennis. Because if you're playing in the seed, they had younger ones at, say, 22, 23, 24, but they had no babies in the team. men, and the training and the standard of training was so high. I had a young one, and he would have put him in. But the difference is, Dennis, even at Celtic and Rangers, you've got to earn the right to play. Rangers have brought a few boys on. They played a few boys against Manchester United late on.
That's right. Yeah.
Bailey King and Curtis, right?
Race.
No disrespect to the boys. They weren't even playing against Dundee United on Sunday. They weren't even anywhere near it, Dennis. So, what does that tell you? Does that mean that we were playing them in Europe? Make sure everybody's quite happy, ticking the box. What happened when they went to Tannadice? They never even got on the pitch. And I don't mean that. That's got nothing to do with the kids or all that, Dennis. I'm just... The landscape has changed totally. If I go back to when I was young, Celtic, Rangers, Motherwell, Hearts, Hibs, they always had the rain coming through. Knew the game's moved to a different level in terms of financially, their outlook and all that. Celtic knew it's not about how many young ones can we get through, because they're looking new. The landscape of European football, millions. Rangers is the same, and I keep hearing this about Rangers, the young ones. Again, I might be wrong, Dennis, and I would say the same at Morton. If Morton were to go and play a team full of youth players, Morton got relegated. There's Erdry done magnificent. Rhys McCabe done brilliant last season. He lost 4 or 5 of his experienced type players.
That's right.
He never replaced the boys. And that's no criticism of any of the boys at Erdry now. But they players he lost, he didn't replace or he never replaced. And they've suffered, at the moment, they've suffered this season. Me, again, I don't know, Cammy, if you agree or Dennis. I'm just a great believer in any team needs 4 or 5 experienced players. And I don't mean 40-year-old, I just mean that from 28 to 34 in there, in that bracket. And you get your younger ones in round about that to protect them, to help them be good senior players and let them go and live their life the way it happened in my stage. They don't do that now. They don't want that because people who run football clubs don't want that, Dennis. What they want is they all think that they're going to get all these young boys and sell them on. Their days are long gone, Dennis. Same as Hamilton Aki's under Billy Reid. Absolutely magnificent. When was the last time Hamilton sold a boy?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean that was Billy's strength, wasn't it? And I mean they've done that at Brighton as well. I mean seriously, they gave youngsters a chance. But
what I'm going to say, Dennis, he also had at Hamilton that protection of a Mark McLaughlin, a Simon Menson, and Alec Neil. So there were good senior players in there. But everybody thinks when I speak like this, I'm a dyer, so I don't want young boys. There's nothing better than young boys in your team, Dennis. But they've got to earn the right. People just think, oh, he's a young boy, put him in your team. You don't get that. You don't get that.
But again, Andy, partly not getting that is the fact of this financial fair play, because now financial fair play is encouraging clubs to bring through players and ship them on and then go and spend 20 million on players that you're not going to sell, 20, 25 million. If Manchester United can get 60 million for Garnacho, or if they can pick up maybe 20, 25 for somebody who's surplus to requirements in Marcus Rashford, that's 25 million straight profit that Manchester United can put right into their books, or 60 million straight profit that they can put into their books. And that'll be the same at the smaller clubs as well. They'll be able to satisfy financial fair play by moving on these young players. These young players aren't going to get a sniff at clubs now because they're going to be moved on. And that's where you're not a dinosaur, Andy, and where football is wrong. Where football's moved on to a stage that is completely wrong, where fans are going to lose a connection to clubs, a connection to players. Andy, you played alongside Craig Bryson. Clyde fans still talk favourably about Craig, and what he did at Clyde, a good young boy coming through, and you're not going to see that at clubs.
No, but that's what I'm saying, Cammy. But also see if you ask Craig Bryson what helped him playing beside good senior players, and what I'm trying to say, Cammy, I'm talking about obviously a different level. I'm talking about out with the European level. I know what you're talking about, but even if you go down Scottish level, clubs don't want senior players. They don't want older players because as soon as they see an age of 30, 32, 30, I know for a fact a certain clubs say if you're 24 and over, you'll not get signed. All the clubs say we don't want anybody 30 and over in my club, and you're like that. Miles off it.
Because you can't ship them out. As Dennis says, it's dead money. And when you're going to be encouraged to sell on 21, 22-year-old players to garner your books, you know, to show a profit on your books, you're going to have a squad of players between 23 and 28, you know, and that's going to be you. That's all you're going to have, because anybody else you're bringing them through, they're getting a year in your first team, and then they're getting punted out, you know, for as much money as you can possibly get to them, so as you can show a profit on your books on them. But anyway, a fair bit of the politics of the off-the-field stuff.
No, but that's interesting, you know, Andy. I mean, there's quite a lot of people don't know that that's how the financial merry-go-round is working at this moment in time, because everybody would assume, and you can be quite right to do that you bring youngsters in and you've got to get them for the academies, and you wonder where they're coming from, and then you see, as you rightly said, Garnacho looking to leave Manchester United only for a money exercise rather than anything else. That's wrong. And, you know, again, people need to understand that. And to be honest, something will change in it, because you can't continue in that same value market. It won't last forever. That's the one thing I would say with that. But I still repeat, and Andy's right, once players get to a certain age at a club, their value's nothing in a lot of ways, unless they're in the team at that moment in time.
Yeah, exactly. But again, moving away from this behind-the-scenes situation of football, we did mention earlier on we're going to be discussing the situation of Stuart Kettlewall at Motherwell. Stuart this week, again, obviously Dennis, I think Andy maybe played alongside him briefly, certainly at Clyde.
No,
did you just left?
I've left.
You just missed him. No bother. Obviously, I remember him when he was a very young lad at Clyde. You know, Clyde brought him in for Queen's Park. But as I say, he's been manager for the last couple of seasons at Motherwell. Stuart resigned during the week. Certainly, they've not been in the greatest of runs, Motherwell, 1 win in 9. But they're still sitting 5th in the Premier League. We've discussed him a few times, Dennis, on the show. But Stuart left the other day, Monday, I think, following another defeat to bottom of the table, St Johnstone. But he cited, obviously, personal abuse from fans. It got to a stage where he was unable to take his wife and his young family to games. Stuart's only 40-year-old now. I think Motherwell's his second managerial job, following the job he did at Ross County. What's your opinion, Dennis? Obviously, personal abuse isn't something that anybody should have to suffer at games. I think Eula probably suffered it at East Stirling at Cumbernauld United. Andy, I've sat in stands and listened to yourself getting abused. Maybe shouted a few myself, you know, but no, in all seriousness, I think there's a level of abuse where it becomes intolerable. Fans are entitled to share their opinion, but I think when it gets to be personal slurs and personal abuse aimed at the manager, that's where it has to stop. And I think Kettlewell's shown a great example, sad example of that it's ultimately led to his resignation from Motherwell Football Club, Dennis.
Yeah, it's pretty sad, but it's been a build-up of various things, and probably Stuart has put himself in a position that's basically used that as a reason to leave. I'm sure there's others as well, because if you look at Motherwell, and we'll just talk about the position in football terms, and then we'll come back to Stuart's reasoning, or good reason, I would say. They're sitting in 5th spot at this moment in time, and they have dropped off. Now, before they dropped off, there was supporters calling for his head before he went that wee run, and I think he got as far as 4th spot, and we were kind of gobsmacked that we're thinking, what's the supporters really wanting? What do they expect? In 4th spot, or 5th, where they are now, do they think they have a divine right to be challenging against the big guns? Now, to me, Motherwell, I'm sure with the financial restraints that they've got, like the rest of the teams round about, have no divine right to be up there. and that's top 6. You've got to battle for it, whether you're St Johnstone or whether you're Aberdeen. You've got to bust a gut. Now, Motherwell's done that because the points on the board are telling you that. But there's a side of it that if you look at 5th spot now, and Andy always uses the words a 2-match, a 3-match swing, there is an element there where you look at it that Motherwell's in 31 points, and then Kilmarnock is in 25 points. So you look at it, from 11th spot of Kilmarnock to 5th, there's a 2-match swing. Right? So you say to yourself, it would be very easy for Motherwell to drop down into that lower scale if the Ross Counties, the Kilmarnocks, the Hearts, Dundees picked themselves up a bit. And that, I think, is maybe, if you look at the club, not the manager, look at the club and think, we're maybe not going in the right direction. Because when you look at it with the exception of St Mirren and maybe Kilmarnock, quite a few of the teams like Hearts, Dundee, Ross County, they're holding their own and picking up some more points. So you say to yourself, has the board of directors allowed Stuart to resign where it's an easy option for them rather than actually sacking him? That would be my first thought. But while the guy is there and sitting in that position, I think it would probably be, in my mind, a bit underhand to be doing that. Now, here's the second part of this. Why have the club allowed somebody with abuse that has obviously came to him, right? Abusive language and foul language and whatever else with his wife and kids there. Why have the club allowed that? Because they will be in a section of the park which has got directors, I'm sure, quite close. And you know that, Andy, as well. The directors and the wives and all the rest, they all sit within a zone. Now, if somebody had been giving them a stick, why is the stewards not attended to this? Or directors seeing this happening and taking them to task and ejected them? Because I'm sure Stuart Kettlewall hasn't left on the back of one game where his wife and family, or his family, have been given or heard stick. And I don't think that would be the case. So I don't think that the club can actually be coming out of this smelling of roses if the manager has left. Now, it's irrelevant in a lot of ways, but I'll mention it. His salary, going by what the reports were, was £175,000 a year. You tell me how bad the abuse would need to be for me or Andy, even splitting that between us, Andy, to go and walk away. So I think there's not so much more to meets the eye. But I think when I looked at it and I thought, how could that have been resolved in a better way? And I kept thinking, is this just an excuse for that board of directors to bump him? You know what I hope? I hope Motherwell go on the slippy slope, because Stuart Kettlewall, and Andy and I know him, and yourself, met him, Cammy, he's a decent human being.
Lovely guy, really nice guy.
Better than the treatment and the way that he's ended up not at a Premier League club. And I hope they go in free fall on the back of this. I really do, because they don't deserve that guy, and they don't deserve a manager that's going to bring into the table either. So all the ones that were actually jumping on the bandwagon and trying to get rid of him, you're in 5th spot. Let's review this in a month, and then they can blame Stuart Kettlewall if they like. I won't. I will blame the decision that's been allowed to happen at this moment in time.
Yeah. I mean, Andy, there's one thing between a manager or a player getting a wee bit of stick, you know, and as I say, fans to me are entitled to express an opinion. They pay their money. It's how they go about expressing that opinion. But there's one thing between a wee bit of stick and such a level of personal abuse that you feel, as Dennis says, you've got to walk away for £175,000 a year shift.
What say, Cammy, I've never been a manager. I've been a player, I've been a hired tail, right? But I've been in the, as I would call it, the coalface. And what I will say is, I would never condone anybody. I know you say you're entitled to your opinion, the supporters, which you are, right? But there's times where it goes right over the edge.
It goes beyond, yeah.
I've had it, Cammy. Listen, I was at a younger level. I didn't understand as I got older, and I genuinely didn't give two hoots. And by the time I was probably about 30, probably by the time I actually went to Clyde, I didn't give 2 hoots what you said. No, you, anybody said. But that's only through experience. But it could be quite tough. I went back to Morton as a player, and my wife and my Waynes were there. And my wife got it in terms of what she allegedly did at night. That's what she was called. Then I went to Clyde. I don't mean in a bad way, Cammy. My wife and Waynes went away to Clyde for a wee while because I was the old guy and I got cane. That didn't affect me.
Yeah.
I then go to St Mirren. I had the exact same problem at St Mirren at the end of my career, where I got it really, really tight as assistant manager, but playing. And then I went to Queen's Park, short of 46. No, through my own choice. I went and done Gardner Spears, and I was getting moaned at with 2 men in their dug at Queen's Park. But what I will say is, I don't think it's right. You said there, Cammy and Dennis, that you get people in the crowd, especially at Morton, especially at Motherwell. There's no full houses. There's 4,000 or 5,000 there. There's a couple of thousand at Morton. You know who's doing it. You know who's saying it. But those individuals aren't strong enough to go and chap Stuart's door and say, "Can I get a blather on Monday morning to speak what's going on at the club?" They wouldn't come near him.
Yeah.
They wouldn't come near him, Cammy. And it's amazing. It's amazing. If you were to do that in the street, you would get lifted.
Yes.
Yeah. Clubs are allowed supporters understand the frustration. They pay their money, they vent, but it's at times it's too personal, and I think it's quite sad. Stuart Kettlewall's 40. That he's actually, if hypothetically, Dennis, what you're saying, he's walked away for that, and you're going, it's get that bad that your wife and your range, which I've had myself, as I say, I just told them, stay out the road, don't go to the games, just stay away. But that shouldn't happen in 2025, Cammy.
No.
And that's not to say, by the way, that's not anybody that's listening here to your podcast saying, he's no this. I don't have a problem. You want to give me stick, give me stick. But see, when your family gets involved in it, it's not right.
No, and I think that's the thing.
But what's the difficult? And by the way, remember, I'm a father now. And I'll give you a quick, I don't know if I told you the story. I was up at a broth last year, and this guy was giving my own son dog's abuse on the main stand at a broth. That's life. I'm sitting there, hat on, glasses on, jacket on, scarf on. I'm just sitting. So nobody knows where I'm at, but I'm sitting. And then this guy who was giving him stick broke me up in there. He went, you're just your father, da. Right, really? And I turned round to him, and he's still mouthing off. And I just went like my hat. I took my hat off. I took my glasses off. And I said to him, who are you talking about? I said, you can give him as much stick as you want. He's playing. I'm sitting here. I don't need that. I don't need that anywhere. And because I'm older now, I don't have any filter now, Cammy. I'll just tell you that. Just tell you where it goes. The guy actually collapsed. Honestly, went, I'm really, really sorry. But because somebody challenged him, what I'm saying is these people are faceless people. People. And then what you've also got, you've got social network and everything you've shown with social, which I haven't got a clue about, Cammy. And you'll be able to tell me, Dennis, I haven't got a clue. So when I was rubbish at football, which was me Saturdays, I would get stick for the punters. I might even get stick sometimes in the paper, but that was it done. But whereas now, you've got keyboard warriors who are killing people and making it personal with those individuals, which is wrong. Wrong.
I mean, I've seen.
Sorry,
I've seen comments. Sorry.
I don't know nothing about it. So somebody might be saying to me, the new Millen, you're talking a lot of rubbish and you're this and you're that. I hadn't got a clue. So what I would say is, and I know it's different now, but what I didn't know didn't hurt me, Cammy. It didn't bother me. But I know that people will think he's rubbish, he's this, he's that, and a lot more personal stuff. But because I didn't know nothing about it didn't affect me.
No, and that's the thing, you know. And I mean, it's as you say, it's different if you're sitting at the game and Ross is getting a bit of abuse and whatever else. And I'm quite sure right, Ross is fair enough, you know. That's it. But
that's
to me, again, Dennis, you're saying obviously about stewards and things like that should be dealing with it and things like that. Stewards will never stamp that out. That will never be stamped out at football grounds, particularly not whilst we still allow sectarian and vile and abusive language and things like that. They will not stamp it out. How can you stamp out abusive players and fans, from fans, when you don't stamp out the sectarian abuse that comes out at Celtic Park and Ibrox every Saturday?
It doesn't need to be just Celtic and Rangers. That's the problem we've got, Cammy. And when we look at it, I can go back to a game I sat with you and somebody that we knew.
Yep.
Was a friend of mine. He was actually someone, I don't know if you worked with him or whatever. And he was at his son was with him, I think, probably about maybe 12, 14 at the time. We're going back a few years now, but it still sticks in my mind quite clearly. And it was Elgin that Clyde were playing. And we were sitting probably about 4 or 5 rows down into the right away from the Elgin supporters. Not that it really matters, but it mattered if it was me that was getting the stick. And this particular individual that we both knew started to give verbal abuse to the guy who had barely said anything from Elgin.
Mm-hmm.
He cursed and he swore and he made vile remarks about his wife and his son sitting there.
Yeah.
And honestly, I went like that behind, hoping that nobody seen me even sitting next to this vile human being. And he was on Facebook and he continued with the same stuff.
Dennis, I was working with Gus McPherson versus Falkirk at Falkirk Stadium. Came out at half time and there was this true chat. Well, there was a guy and his father and son. Father's son was quite a big guy and the boy was quite a wee big guy, right? Big young boy. And they've come out and what he gave me and Gus McPherson was wrong. But because I answered that back in a sharp tongue way, the security man pulled me up and I told the security guy where to go and I says to him, where's the constable? Because you always get, well, in these days, there used to be a main police standing in the tunnel area. Where is he? And I pulled him over. I says, see the way he's talking to me? I'm not having that.
Mm-hmm.
See, after the game, I was pulled in the referee and the police, and I get reprimanded for that. I get bothered for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going,
if
I was out in the street, you would give a done, Cammy.
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a bad way. What I was going to say, go back on to Stuart, Dennis and Cammy, and I don't mean this in a bad, and I can only imagine what he's had to go through. But if Stuart goes back into the game, it's never going to go away.
No.
It's never going away. And I'm not
a target.
I don't mean that in a bad way, Cammy. And I'm not trying to be smug and say. I'm saying, right, Stuart, I understand, and I totally understand that pressure you must have had, and that criticism, and it's wrong. It's wrong. But wherever you're going to go, that's not going to go away. It's never going to go.
It'll magnify itself because, and I took down 4 names that need to actually address this: police, the football authorities, the clubs, and the fans. There's 4 elements to this.
The football authorities. Can you give me who you're talking about, Dennis?
Well, the people that actually decide on whether we have, and you've done it many a time, and I mentioned Cammy about this, and it's changing a little bit, but it's the same thing. Show racism the red card. I remember years ago, I'm standing on the touchline with this wee stupid bit of cardboard saying, show racism the red card, right?
Tick a box, that's what it is, tick a box. You do it once a year.
Yep.
I'm still doing it.
Still a tick a box.
I'm still doing it, Andy.
What I thought you might have said was the SFA.
Well, that's the point I'm trying to make. Who delved out these?
Who instigates that?
Or has the idea that show racism the red card, when in actual fact, when you say who's the authorities, these are the people of the authorities that need to stop playing wee games with a piece of card and go and do something proactive. Now, I'll take another example. I'm going to start half a rant. I watched the Rangers Dundee United game, and when you look at the possibilities of somebody getting dragged out on the back of Stuart Kettlewall getting verbal abuse, or his wife and kids are, why do we not have the police in the stadium? Dundee United against Rangers,
Money.
No, they were there. If you can go back and watch it, and I raised this 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was a bit disgusting actually, that you actually have police in the ground enjoying a game of football and getting paid probably good money, double time or whatever, on a Sunday. They were there in numbers at the corners. The television screen was giving you the right and left side of the park, the other away from the cameras, and I counted in each corner at least 8 police watching the game. Watching the game. Now, what's wrong with them going to the top of one at each stairwell and keep an eye on the crowd from above? Or, as I've seen in England, they go round the ground, walk round the ground, looking up into the crowd, no watching the match. In fact, so much so, there was a shot actually was taken with Rangers or Dundee, I can't remember where it was now. And when 2 of the police standing in the corner watching the game reacted with jumping. And I'm thinking, you're not here to get paid by the club and public taxpayers' money to enjoy this football match. You're here to do a service. And if something acts, they're still too far away for it to do anything. Now, that to me is a starting point, because if one of the policemen had been, say, at a Motherwell game, and he was in that particular stand, that person that was giving Stuart Kettlewell's wife and kids a bit of stick might have been hauled out. But it's all wrong. That's why I say police first.
But
football.
See, we're all talking about that. What is the actual club going to do about it? What is the actual club going to do about it? And the biggest problem you've got is you've got Motherwell, which is fan owned. So what they'll say is, I put money in every month. I can say what I want, but the club will never actually go and get that individual or that group individual and say that's you banned.
But Andy, that same self-same club portrays itself to be a family club. Motherwell portrays itself as a family club, and the manager getting abused that he has to walk away from the club is not a family club.
That's what I'm saying. The clubs portray all this. Club portray everything, but they don't want to do anything. I told you a quick story, Cam. I know I'm going on here. I played at St Mirren. I played in the reserves at St Mirren. We played Kilmarnock. I played with all the young boys, and we played well. Playing suicide football, but it was a game of football, blah blah blah. Near risk, so you play. The guys at the side of the old Love Street were really, really, really sore on myself, but more so on the young boys because of how they were playing. They won the game, right? But it's how they played. Finished, and I jumped toward the wall. I went down through the turnstile and down the lane at the old Love Street, and I had a go at 4 Algians who were getting the boys stick. All my gear on. And from there on, I went up the stair into the director's room. They were having a board meeting. Chapped the door. I was having a meeting. I said, I need 5 minutes of time. And I stood and says to them, I says, I can't believe you sat and watched that game and allowed that to happen in the reserve game. Right. The way they spoke. I says, a disgrace. By the way, it did affect me. And they looked at me, I said, it did affect me. See the young boys? The young boys are trying to earn
how are they coming on?
And by the way, you, as a custodian of the club, are allowing that to go. You know better. I don't mean this in a bad way, Cammy. You know better going like 3, 4 guys. That's you banned, and that might go round. That might go round. Other people go.
That's what it's going to take.
If we step out of line here, we can't do that. And I'm not saying that a supporter can't moan, Cammy. So I'm not saying that. But it's when it really gets personal.
Andy, it's easy done. You have policemen at the back of all these stairwells, or at least maybe 1, 2, whatever you can afford. And you have that deterrent at the back of you. These foul-mouthed people will not react because they're cowards, as you've rightly pointed out. And if they think that the police are at the back of him and he comes down, taps him on the shoulder, excuse me, sir, you're out the door. Oh, right away.
Cammy, see if you've not got a police in between the 2 dugout areas, say at the tunnel area, you've got a head of security, we'll say.
Aye.
It's not the first time I've said to them, are you going to allow that to happen? And they look at you as if Because see, if I was to say something, I'll get put all the calls.
Aye,
That's the thing, yeah. That's it.
But yet they'll allow that to go, and that's what I don't understand. And as I say, I
Yeah.
understand supporters' frustration. So it's not as if I'm mollycoddling a silver spoon. I totally understand that, but I think it's quite sad when somebody leaves a Premier League club in Motherwell, which, as you say, is a good, well-run, reputedly community club, and yet the manager's walked away. If you're telling me it's £175,000, wow,
For
I'm
abuse.
going for that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Stuart's next job, if it is a manager, back into that again.
Yeah.
It never goes away.
Yeah.
Whether you're Brendan Rodgers or whether you're Clement, it makes no difference. Somebody's going to be at you for criticism constantly.
Yeah.
Well,
but it's wrong. It's wrong.
If the dust settles, Randy, we need to watch our time because Cammy will get hung. What I was going to suggest is when the dust settles, we'll maybe see if we can get a hold of Stuart when he's maybe in a more frame of mind that he's get rid of it.
I think
we can maybe get him on and he can give us his thoughts. But for just now, I think our opinion is fairly clear. These people that are attending football matches don't deserve that. They're no nice human beings. They're actually not that intelligent either, because when you look it up, they're a low emotional intelligence. They've got limited communication skills. They've got social and environmental influences that are out with it. And it's learned behaviour from the family. Without going on and on and on, there's a dozen reasons why these people have got problems.
One quick thing, Dennis Cammy, is, and I said this to somebody when I was at St Mirren, at a player of the year night, you pay £25 or £30 for the game. That's right. I says, so I'll give you £30 and I'll come and fill and abuse you for 1 hour and 30 minutes. And you looked at me.
Yeah.
I says, would you like that? And I went, that's what you do. So I'll give you £30, I'll come into your job and I'll stand all the top of you and I'll fill and abuse you and your family and see how you would like that.
Correct.
But they don't comprehend that. They don't.
No, that's it. They can't comprehend it. Yeah, that's the problem, unfortunately. You know,
they're sad people. They're sad people.
But what you find out, a lot of these fans, they go into the house, they don't say boot or goose. Their wife will be in charge, and they come out the house at 3 o'clock to 4:45 and think, I can see whatever I want here, and then I go back into the house. I go into my cage, shut down, lock the door, and David will tell it in there. That's it. A frustrated husband. That's what it is.
Love it. Well, Motherwell's next game, believe it or not, is against Celtic. Stevie Frail has been put in temporary charge at Motherwell, and his next game, as I say, against Celtic on Sky this Sunday, Dennis.
Yeah, well, the fixtures we've got coming up, we're just touching on two that were relevant, maybe all firms.
We'll run through the full fixture list. We're nearly at a 90-minute game.
Rangers
anyway.
come off the back of a good result against Dundee United, something that may have been questionable in relation to their away form, but they've done exceptionally well. Aberdeen, total free fall, St Mirren 3-0. Great result for Hearts against Kilmarnock, winning 3-2. And then when you look at you just say to yourself, where are we going to find Dundee and Celtic 3 each? A great performance for Dundee. Celtic slipped them up in my head just a wee bit, but we'll see how it all pans out this weekend. You've got Dundee and Hearts, Hibs playing Aberdeen, St Mirren, St Johnstone, and Kilmarnock have Dundee United. Motherwell, as you mentioned, are playing Celtic on Sunday, 3 o'clock, and Rangers have Ross County. I think that's good fixtures. I think it'll be very difficult for both Motherwell and Ross County getting out of these games. And then you've got games next week, or midweek game with Celtic playing Dundee. That'll be a toughie. And then we'll obviously be into the following week. I don't know if you want to cover any of the championship stuff.
Well, what I will say is it seems like only 2 or 3 weeks ago that was the fixture list. You know, I've lost count of the amount of times I feel as if Hibs have played Aberdeen this season. You know, and obviously Celtic, Dundee. I know we play each other 4 times, depending on obviously the top 6 split. But honestly, I mean, it feels to me as if Aberdeen and Hibs just played a couple of weeks ago. You know, and certainly Celtic, Dundee. You talked about it earlier on, 3 each. You know,
that was the 14th of January, and they're playing.
So, I mean, it's crazy.
That game on Tuesday, the one that was called off with the Storm last week.
Storm, that was maybe last week, yeah. Anyway, if you want to get into the Championship, I know there's a game on just now, and I'll just tell you how it's going.
Falkirk just now, and Livingston, I think it is.
Sorry, today, and we are 1-0 for Livingston. Andy, you spoke and talked highly of Livingston. Do you still feel that they've potentially got a chance of winning this league?
I said in September, that's who I think will win the league.
Right. Yeah.
And that's Falkirk, middle to front, are very, very good. I just think that nobody spoke about Livingston. Nobody. And Morton went through to Livingston and drew one each with them.
Yeah.
And then
that's absolutely
home. And after I saw them, when we drew with them one each, I said, in between the two boxes, they were the best. I know it sounds a bit stupid, but at the back, inside the rain box, they weren't a bit dodgy.
Yeah.
And at the top end, they weren't too firepower. But what I would say is, they've got good players who've been in the Premier League for nearly 5-6 years, Dennis.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was talking about Ayr United, Raith Rovers, Partick Thistle, Falkirk. Nobody spoke about Livingston. And I might be wrong, but that's who I fancy to win the league at the end of is Livingston.
Yeah, well, I'll still stick with my Falkirk, which is they're still going okay. If Livingston that would take them to a point within Falkirk, but Falkirk's got a game in hand. Andy, we're not going to go through the whole league.
No,
what I'll say is your own team are playing Partick Thistle tomorrow. How do you fancy that? Because Partick Thistle seem to be up and down. They lost their last game, they won one, and then they lost the two before. So they're a bit of a hit or a miss, Andy. And whereas your team has gone really well, you've not lost anything in the last 6.
Nine. Out of 9.
Oh, there you are.
Listen, we did okay, but tomorrow's a different game again. Tough game, Fir Hill, good players, good team, and a team that's expecting to be closer to the top than what they are now. They'll be disappointed because there's been a lot of money spent in that squad, big money spent in that squad. So we expect a tough game tomorrow, Dennis, away from him. But again, we played Queen's Park last week, 2 away games in a row. We've got 3 points for the first game. So tomorrow, I would say it's a free hit because we've got 3 points rather than having 2 or having nothing. So it's a tough game tomorrow, but we'll see where it goes. Well,
your Partick Thistle's played 2 games more than you. So, you look at them, and if you to win the 2 games in hand, there would only be 4 points in front of you. And if you can beat them, that means then you're getting yourself up into the top flight there.
Dennis, if Morton finish above place this season, Doug Emery has done a miracle job.
Yeah. Well, it's there for you, Andy. Just hope you can get it.
The job that Doug Emery is doing now is remarkable.
Yeah, certainly is. Yeah. I mean, you're still in a chance to get into the top 4. So hopefully you can get there, Andy. Let's look to League One. And what we got? Clover playing abroad, Dumbarton Alloa, Inverness Queen of the South, Kelty Hearts and Annan, and Montrose have got Stenhousemuir. Top is Arbroath in 34 points, and at the bottom Dumbarton in 7. Just looking into the next division, which is you're more interested in, Cammy. You've got Bonnyrigg Rose, your favourite team. I know that you like them. Playing Clyde. Edinburgh City, Stirling Albion. Elgin have got East Fife. Peterhead, Forfar Athletic, and Stranraer have got Spartans. There's fixtures on the Tuesday night. Elgin are playing Bonnyrigg Rose. I just can't work this out. I said it before, Andy. Teams travelling at the level of the stature of these clubs. Going to Elgin for Bonnyrigg Rose on a Tuesday night is disgraceful, and the people that put these fixtures in really need to get a look at them. Still in Albion, I've got Spartans, no the worst. But then again, you've got Forfar travelling all the way down to Stranraer. What is that about? I just can't get my head around that.
That's mental.
Dennis, there's no common sense. Just a quick one again. We've no game next week because of the Scottish Cup.
Yeah.
I brought a game into that, but because the 2 teams that we play, Hamilton and Raith Rovers are both in the Scottish Cup, we then play them in 2 weeks' time, we've actually got 3 games in 6 days, and some lunatic in Scottish football put us in the live game on the Friday, so we're going to play Saturday, Tuesday, Friday. They're miles off it. Miles.
Great if you get the 3 points in each of them, Andy.
But by the way, the old firm will even play 3 games in 6 days.
Yeah.
No, that's it. Exactly.
They'll play 3 games in 7 days. No 3 games in 6 days. And this is what I'm saying. They're actually loon balls that run the Scottish football. Lunatics. It's running the asylum right enough. Sorry.
Anyway.
Yeah, indeed. But listen, you still getting the half-wits at the SFA personal abuse.
Wow.
Right.
Brilliant. Can you find them, Cammy, out the top?
Indeed. And listen, Bonnie Rig Rose tomorrow. I've got to give that game a miss because obviously the last time I had a fallout with a steward. So,
all right.
Yeah. That was not me personally, but
was it
that was the last game with
language?
It was, and that was from the steward, remember?
All right.
If you recall, Dennis, we talked about it at the time, you know what I mean? The steward who, whether he was local or not, etc., if you recall, right. You know. But there you go. I knew that would remind you. So, so there you go. So I'm not going tomorrow.
Quick finishing note. I did dig into the Washington Commanders and I watched a quarter of an hour of it. I'd have been better watching ice skating because I knew more about it. I believe you didn't progress.
Last week. Listen, we got to the semi-finals. It's like Rangers getting to the semi-final of the European Cup, so I'll take it.
I watched a little bit of it, but it confused me beyond belief. Football's bad enough for me, but the American football, unless somebody sits down with you and explains the rules, it's not somewhere you can work it out. I don't know if you're into it, Andy, but no for me. No, never.
No, I knew it was. Listen, I almost wore I should have worn my Washington Commanders top the night rather than my green Philadelphia Eagles coloured one, but never mind.
Well, they've done well anyway.
Listen, they have done absolutely exceptional, you know, in all seriousness, you know. So anyway, that's for another broadcast.
Yes, and that's
indeed, guys. Listen, we have done it. We have actually had a podcast which lasted the length of a game of football. The 90 minutes. Friday night football pitch it has been tonight. So thank you as always to Dennis Newell. Thanks again to Andy Millen for gracing us with his presence and coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for you guys for listening. As I've said before, like, subscribe, share the podcast, tell your pals. Where else are you going to get 90 minutes of football talks with 3 guys there? Two as well versed in the game as Dennis and Andy are. I'm just here trying to hold it all together. But thank you very much as always. You have been listening to the Friday Night Football Pitch. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.